No one designed the Viking. There was no training camp, no academy, no master with a whip standing over him, hammering him into shape. Nobody sat down and engineered the most feared raider in the medieval world. And that is exactly what should unsettle you, because it means something far colder did the work instead. A Viking's body wasn't forged by a system. It was forged by a world that would kill him the moment he went soft. He didn't choose the hardship. He was born into it, surrounded by it, and shaped by it every single day until it became who he was. Now be honest with yourself for a second. When did you last feel real cold? The kind that makes your hands stop working? When did you last go a full day genuinely hungry? When did you last do something with your body so hard that you weren't sure you'd finish? For most men alive today, the answer is never. We've built a world with a thermostat for every room, food within arm's reach at every hour, and a screen to numb every dull moment. And then we wonder why a rainy commute or a slow connection can feel like a genuine hardship. 1,000 years ago, a boy of 7 was hauling water and splitting wood in the snow. Today, a grown man's entire day can be ruined by a cold coffee. I'm not saying that to insult you. I'm saying it because some part of you already feels it, that the life we've built is comfortable in a way that's quietly making us weak, that we've traded toughness for convenience and haven't fully noticed what it cost. The Vikings are the clearest mirror we have. They show you exactly what a body and a mind become when every soft option is stripped away. And by the end of this, you're going to understand not just how their world forged them, but which of those forces you could deliberately put back into your own life. Because the strength was never in their blood. It was in what they were made to endure. And that means it's available to you too. Stay to the end. This one matters more than you think. Let's start with what they actually were. Because here too, you've probably pictured it wrong. When you hear the word Viking, you see the giant. 7 feet of muscle, blonde hair, a body carved for war. But the bones tell a quieter story. Archaeologists have recovered hundreds of Viking skeletons, and the picture of the towering superhuman fades. Their build was much like our own. They suffered from worn joints and bad teeth. Many carried the marks of old injuries and years of relentless strain. But there is one thing those bones show clearly. They were harder than us, more muscular than us, worn into density and strength by a life of physical work that never stopped. And that is the key that unlocks everything. The Viking wasn't born a monster. He was made into one, by a world that demanded it. His strength wasn't a gift. It was a scar. So let's walk through the forces that left that scar, one at a time, because each one of them shaped the body, and not a single one of them was optional. The first forge was winter. Before a Viking ever lifted a weapon, before he ever pulled an oar, he had to survive the place he was born. The Scandinavian world was cold, dark, and unforgiving. Long nights, brutal frosts, a growing season so short that the entire year bent around one desperate question. Will there be enough to last the winter? Because food was seasonal, life ran in a cruel rhythm of feast and famine. In the good months, you ate and you stored. In the lean months, you went without, and you watched the weak among you not make it through to spring. The winter didn't need a council of elders to decide who was strong enough. It decided on its own, quietly, every single year. Think about what that does to a people over centuries. Every child who lived was a child the winter had already tested. The cold was the first thing that ever tried to kill a Viking, and everything he became was built on top of having survived it. He grew up understanding, in his bones, that comfort was temporary and hardship was coming. That is a lesson almost no one in the modern world learns anymore. We treat discomfort as a malfunction. He was raised to treat it as the natural state of things. which leads directly to the second forge: labor. There was no childhood as we understand it, no long, soft, protected years of play. A Viking child was, from the beginning, a worker in training. By the age of 7, most were expected to do real, physical work, hauling water, gathering firewood, tending animals, helping in the fields, learning the trades their survival would depend on. And what took the place of school was movement: running, jumping, wrestling, swimming, rowing, skiing across frozen ground. Where we would sit a child at a desk, they put a child to work and to hard play, and the two were barely distinguishable. Even their games were conditioning in disguise: mock fights, contests of strength and endurance, all of it quietly building the body a warrior would one day need. Some of it was almost unbelievable in its difficulty. There are accounts of a game where young men would run and balance along the oars of a boat, on the narrow, wet, moving blades, while the boat was actually being rowed through the water. Another where they would juggle several sharp blades at once, catching them without cutting themselves. This was play. This was what they did for fun. And every hour of it was laying down coordination, grip, balance, and raw physical confidence that most grown men today have never possessed in their lives. By the time a Viking reached adulthood, his body had already been working hard for well over a decade. There was no soft version of him that existed first. He was built, from childhood, out of labor. But the forge that truly set the Vikings apart from every other people of their age wasn't on the land at all. It was on the water. And before we go there, because this is the part that turns a hard life into a legendary one, let me say one quick thing. If everything so far is making you realize how much strength we've quietly traded away for comfort, the deeper system for winning it back, how the old world ate, moved, rested, and hardened itself into resilience, is what the art of living like a man lays out in full. The link is in the description. Now, to the sea. The Viking longship is remembered as a marvel of speed and craft. What gets forgotten is what it was actually like to live aboard one. Because these ships had no cabins, no shelter, no below-deck quarters of any kind. The deck was open to the sky, to the wind, the rain, the freezing spray, for the entire journey. And those journeys were long. Crossing the open North Atlantic could take 2 to 3 weeks, and it was brutal regardless of the season. There was no cooking on rough crossings, so the crew ate cold, dried, salted food. When it rained, and it rained often, there was no waterproof gear to save them. Every layer soaked through, and the men simply endured the cold, hour after hour, day after day, with nowhere to escape it. When the wind failed, they rowed. Picture 60, 70, 80 men on a single ship, pulling oars in punishing rhythm across an ocean. Historians believe exhaustion was a constant companion on these voyages. You rowed for hours, you rested for minutes, and then you rowed again. And when they slept where they sat, wedged between the rowing benches on a heaving deck, in a leather bag, soaked and cold, waking to do it all over again. Sit with what that demanded. Weeks of cold with no relief. Hard labor at the oar with no real rest. Cramped, wet, exhausted, hungry, and surrounded on all sides by an ocean that could swallow the ship whole at any moment. There is almost nothing in modern civilian life that compares to it. A single one of those crossings would break most men alive today. The Vikings did it again and again, and treated it as simply the cost of getting where they were going. The sea didn't just carry them, it hardened everything, the winter, and the labor had already begun. Which brings us to the fourth forge, the one that fueled all the rest: food. Here is a detail that surprises people. The Vikings, by the standards of their time, ate well. Most historians agree they ate better than the ordinary people of much of the rest of Europe. Their diet was heavy in exactly the things a hard body needs: protein and fat, Fish, meat, and dairy formed the core of it, with far more animal protein than the grain-heavy diets of the farming peasants to the south. An Arab diplomat named Ibn Fadlan, who encountered a band of Norsemen far from home, left behind a line that says it all. He wrote that he had never seen bodies more perfect than theirs, tall and strong and hard. But do not mistake eating well for eating easily. Their food was earned, hunted, caught, and fought for against the clock of the seasons. And survival ran through the grim work of preservation. Fish were gutted and hung out in the cold air on wooden racks until they dried into something called stockfish, hard as a board, but packed with protein that could keep a family alive through the darkest months of winter. This was a people who understood, at the deepest level, that food was not a comfort or an entertainment. It was fuel, and it was survival, and it was never, ever guaranteed. So now you have the body, bred by winter, built by labor, hardened by the sea, fueled by a lean, protein-heavy diet earned against the seasons. But there is one last forge, and it is the one that made a Viking willingly walk into all of the others. It wasn't in the body at all. It was in the mind. Because none of this, the cold, the labor, the sea, the raiding, works without a mind that refuses to break. And the Norse built that mind on two ideas that have almost vanished from the modern world. The first was fate. The Vikings believed the hour of your death was already fixed, set, unchangeable. And if the moment of your death is already decided, then fear becomes pointless. You cannot die before your time, and you cannot escape it when it comes. So you may as well act boldly, endure what has to be endured, and meet whatever comes without flinching. That single belief burned the fear out of a man. The second was reputation. In the Norse world, how you were remembered mattered more than how long you lived. There is a line from their own poetry that captures it perfectly. Cattle die, kinsmen die, and you yourself will die. But the one thing that never dies is the reputation of a man who earned a good one. To be remembered as strong, brave, and unbreakable was a kind of immortality. And to be remembered as soft, as a coward, as a man who quit, that was a fate worse than death itself. Put those two beliefs together and you get something formidable. A man who does not fear dying and who fears weakness more than he fears pain. That is a man the cold cannot lecture, the sea cannot frighten, and hardship cannot bend. The final forge wasn't a place or a task. It was a way of seeing the world that made enduring everything else not just possible, but a point of pride. Now step back and look at the whole thing together. A world of winter that killed the soft before they ever grew up. A childhood of labor that built the body before the mind could complain. A sea that stripped away every comfort a man had left. A hard-earned diet that fueled it all. And a set of beliefs that made a man walk toward the difficulty instead of away from it. 5 forces, not one of them designed, not one of them optional, and together they produced a human being of a toughness we can barely imagine today. And that is the uncomfortable part. Because look at what we have done with our own world. We have taken every single one of those forces and switched it off. The winter that hardened them, we heated away at the touch of a button. The labor that built them, we have engineered out of daily life almost entirely. The hunger that sharpened them, we have replaced with food on demand, at every hour, in every direction. And the beliefs that steeled them, that death is certain and weakness is shameful, we have quietly replaced with the pursuit of comfort as the highest goal there is. We are, in almost every measurable way, the softest people who have ever lived. And some part of you, watching this, already knew that before I said it. But here is what the Vikings actually leave us, not a call to sail an ocean or raid a coastline. Something quieter and more useful than that. They are proof of what a human being becomes when hardship is a normal part of life rather than an emergency to be avoided. They show us that the strength we admire in them was never magic and never genetic. It was simply the natural result of a life that asked hard things of the body every day. And that means the door is not closed to us. The cold shower we flinch from, the walk we take in the rain instead of the car, the workout that frightens us a little, the meal we skip, the comfort we choose deliberately to go without. None of it is a Viking crossing the North Atlantic, but it is the same principle, scaled down to a life that no longer requires it, voluntarily reaching for the hardship that our world has removed, because some part of us understands that we were never meant to be this comfortable. The Vikings didn't become strong because they were special. They became strong because their world refused to let them be weak. Ours will let us be weak. That is the whole danger of it, which means the only person left who can ask hard things of you now is you. Viking Way exists to recover what was lost. If this made you look at your own comfort a little differently, you already know what to do.